A very good evening. Welcome to State of Business on our television. I'm Ashing Sunny Veerasinghe. Let's have a look at the headlines first. Health Minister mulls over reopening country's economic activities, claiming that the pandemic is satisfactorily contained. Export Development Board cuts its initial ambitious export target due to the virus-hit economy. News in detail. Health Minister Pavitra Wanyarachi today asserts that the government has satisfactorily controlled the spread of the COVID-19 in society and that this is the high time to think about resuming the overall economic activities of the country. Minister Wanyarachi also adds that she does not see a requirement to further shut down the country with curfew. Accordingly, Health Ministry announces that 4 new coronavirus positive cases have been identified from the country as of 6 p.m. today, bringing the total confirmed cases to 242. Director General of Health Services Dr. Anil Jasinghe added that 3 new coronavirus patients found today were women and that they were identified from the Poonani Quarantine Centre. He added that nearly 530 PCR tests were carried out today. Furthermore, Dr. Anil Jasinghe noted that the lady who had contracted the virus after the completion of the 14-day quarantine process, who was found last Wednesday, has had mild symptoms of coughing and sneezing but has not considered it significant since she had been diagnosed as an asthma patient. Meanwhile, Health Minister Pavitra Wanyarachi, addressing the media in Colombo, said that even after a tough 1-month period, the government was capable of tackling the spread of coronavirus in the country. She also added that they were capable of doing that due to the right leadership under the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Minister said that the government's initial concern was the safety of all the citizens and at present they have controlled the situation satisfactorily. Accordingly, she highlights that the country should be moved away from the shutdown moves and should concentrate on strengthening the economy. Meanwhile, another batch at the Poonani Quarantine Centre left for their homes today after completion of the quarantine process. They praised the relentless service of the Triforces, health officials and the government in handling the pandemic. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka Army engaged in a number of entertainment sessions in Colombo and other places where quarantine process is being carried out. Here, the forces personnel using music helped people in coronavirus-hit areas to stay calm and beat the health scare. The International Monetary Fund announces that it will start reviewing Sri Lanka's request for rapid credit facility during this week. Replying to media queries at the Asia and Pacific Department press briefing held yesterday, Director of Asia and Pacific Department of the IMF, Shang Yong Ri, explained about this in detail.
Has Sri Lanka made any request for debt relief or any special corona funds? Also, what is the status of the current program review?
Yeah, we received a letter from Sri Lankan government about our rapid credit facility, the program, RCF RFF program. So we are now start to review it, and we are now discussing with the government whether they want to switch their previous program into our new rapid facilities. So we will discuss this week.
Being realistic about the post-coronavirus recovery path, Export Development Board Chairman Prabhash Supasinghe stresses that it would take at least 18 months for the export sector to witness some level of regularity. Joining an online discussion facilitated by Colombo-based think tank Advocata, which looked at the impact of the pandemic on the Sri Lankan export industry, EDB had also noted that EDB has revised the $18.5 billion initial export target set for 2020 to $10.5 billion.
When I look at total exports in Sri Lanka, I had an ambitious plan 6 weeks ago of $18.5 billion in exports. That was 6 weeks ago. COVID happened, we are where we are. When I talk about a recovery, again, I think we need to be pretty realistic in terms of a recovery. We are not going to be able to find a miracle. This is a long-term game. We need to start thinking about running a marathon and not a race. So I would be looking at a minimum of 18 months for us to come to some level of normalcy. The EDB, we've reduced export target. 18.5 billion was from merchandise as well as service exports. We've reduced it to $10.75 billion. That's a sharp reduction. Just in merchandise exports, we've reduced it from 13.5 billion to $7.5 billion. So the reality is that we are not going to have the business we had yesterday. That's a reality. We just need to understand that and get on with the program.
Meanwhile, expressing views at the online discussion conducted by Advocata, Chief Executive Officer of apparel manufacturer Brandex, Ashraf Omar, emphasizes that there will be massive job losses in the sector with an industry-wide demand contraction of about 40% across 2020.
So if you look at the demand, we believe that there will be a contraction of about 40% for the rest of the year. But 40 will be across the whole year. But if you look at April, May, June, it is much more than that. It's 70, 80%. So if there is a 40% reduction, now this industry is about a $480 billion export industry worldwide. We have only 1.5% of that. So the biggest player obviously is China, and China is working well. Bangladesh is semi-lockdown. Vietnam and Indonesia are still working. So if once the demand shrinks, then there will be a price war. Now in that war, right, because of the customer relationships, because of the product that you supply, we will be able to retain some amount of product, but it will be at prices which won't be attractive at all. So we have been advising the government that you will find massive unemployment starting end of April. And how do you combat that as a country, as an economy, as a society? There will be issues.
Stay tuned for more news after this short break. Welcome back after the break. Central Bank of Sri Lanka announces that the manufacturing activities significantly contracted due to adverse impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, with Purchasing Managers Index recording the all-time low index value of 30 index points in March this year, with a decline of 23.6 index points from February 2020. Accordingly, the significant decline in production was due to the closure of manufacturing companies due to curfew since mid-March this year. Further, new orders and stock of purchases contracted significantly in line with the closure of companies and the halting of production process. Moreover, the orders received at the beginning of March from USA and Europe markets, particularly textile and wearing apparel orders, were subsequently cancelled with the spread of the virus in those countries. Thereby, services sector PMI declined significantly to 32 in March this year, recording the lowest index value in services PMI since May 2015, reflecting the adverse impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the services sector of the economy. All sub-indices of services PMI except for backlogs of work remain significantly below the threshold level of 50, indicating the widespread impact of this pandemic on services activities. New businesses and business activities declined mainly in services related to tourism industry such as hotels, travel agents and recreation activities. In addition, domestic travel restrictions imposed in line with the lockdown of the country and slowdown in cargo handling have affected negatively on the business activities of the transportation subsector. Even though the wholesale and retail trade sector observed an increase in demand with stockpiling, the demand could not be catered due to the issues with staff availability and delivery networks. The Ceylon Chamber of Commerce submitting a proposal to the government suggests a mechanism to ensure demand reductions in public transport in the peak period in the process of bringing the country back into tracks. The working paper, titled as A Proposal for Managing Post-COVID-19 Passenger Transport for a Safe Return to Economic and Social Life in Sri Lanka by the CCC, has 7 long pages and brings a number of suggestions to bring back the country's economy to normalcy. The working paper suggests that the government should make guidelines on issues such as the number of people working in an establishment, the opening and closing time of office hours for both the public and private sectors, and the introduction of flexible hours and work from home. The CCC highlights the importance of returning to economic activities and social life in the country will require a number of interdependent sectors be prepared in coordination with the health and security institutions handling the matters pertaining to the prevention of the spread of the COVID-19 virus. The paper, which has been drafted by the Subcommittee on Passenger Transport of the National Agenda Committee of Logistics and Transport, mainly discusses on how to manage passenger transport safely as government considers exit strategies from the current curfew status. The paper suggests to reduce the total number of entrants, especially during the peak hours, into cities like Colombo in the first few weeks, with gradual plans to ramp it up based on the progression achieved while minimizing the rate of infection. The CCC also recommends that guidelines for all forms of transport operations be issued prior to commencing transportation, with specific attention on overcrowding and the practice of health guidelines with the coordination of the relevant health officials. Further, they encourage buses and trains to operate at marginal cost recovery and invites to make this an opportune moment to transform the public sector transportation system and use digital public transport operation platforms to facilitate its transformation to a modern and world-class service seen in many countries and cities the world over. Sri Lanka-based LOLC Group announced that a holding company in Singapore received $422 million from the sale of the first tranche of its Cambodian unit Prasak to KB Financial Group of Korea. LOLC Group struck a deal in this January to sell 70% of Prasak, the largest microfinance company in Cambodia, to Cookmin Bank for $603 million. In January this year, the LOLC Group announced of their agreement to sell its 70% stake held in Cambodia's largest microfinance company, Prasak, to the world's sixth largest commercial bank and Korea's biggest commercial bank, Cookmin. The transaction was valued as $603 million or 120 billion rupees in local currency terms. Sri Lanka-based LOLC Group recently announced that as per the sale agreement, the $422 million for the first tranche had been remitted to LOLC International Private Limited, a holding company based in Singapore. The balance of $181 million will be due in 2022, and the post-transaction value of Prasak is estimated at $862 million. LOLC Deputy Chairman Isharana Naikara, speaking to media, said that the transaction is a significant milestone not only for LOLC but also for the whole country, especially as the nation is facing challenging times. He also said that even though LOLC exits from Prasak, the company has no plans to withdraw from Cambodia, as it currently has a 97% stake in LOLC Cambodia, the fourth largest microfinance company in terms of market position and the second most profitable microfinance institution in Cambodia. LOLC Deputy Chairman Nanaikara also added that the stronger balance sheet of LOLC will also provide the necessary impetus for the local financial services companies such as LOLC Finance PLC, LOLC Development Finance PLC and Commercial Leasing and Finance PLC to grow their businesses further. And that's all the news for today. Stay home, stay safe. See you again on Monday with State of Business. Until then, take care. Good night.